Does the WWE need a women's mid-card title? One of the biggest questions that I feel like has been floating around in 2024. So as of the recording of this video, there is not a women's mid-card title. I do believe they've been, I don't know if they've already done it, but I believe they're adding a women's mid-card title to NXT. But as of recording this video, there is not one of the main roster. If for somehow, some way, this upcoming Friday or Monday, they introduce it, I'm going to be so upset because I have a really cool video for you guys. So before we get right into the video, I want to let you guys know that if you guys enjoy professional wrestling content, make sure to subscribe to this channel. I know you're going to love it. I mean, I hope you love it. It's me, Allenownz, with you guys. So subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll see you guys at the end of the video talking about this. Let's go. So as we know, the women's roster is absolutely stacked. We can argue that there are about 10 to 12 women that could be the champion, but there are only 2 champions, and as of recently, it feels like they're not showing the women on TV as much as they used to, unless it's in tag team matches. Everyone seems to be yelling out their solution is adding a women's mid-card title. Now, here is a few things we're gonna have to discuss a little bit before we get into that, and also discuss of what the outcome could be with it. So the WWE feels to be having a very unique approach when it comes to the women's roster right now. Whenever there are women that we feel like could be good, successful, could be bad singles, overall could do well on the main roster, it feels like they're sticking them together into tag teams. Our current tag team champions are Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. I think we could all agree that if either one of them was solo right now, they both be competing for the main title. But now that they're together, they're the women's tag team champions. When you see it with Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark, we saw Zoe compete against Rhea Ripley not too long ago for the title. We know Shayna Baszler is a player when it comes to the title. One of the massive fan favorites in Chelsea Green is someone that everybody wants to win the women's Money in the Bank, someone that could compete for the main title, as well as Piper Niven seems like someone that they definitely want to position to have and be a big player for the main title, as she's going to be competing for it at Clash. Then you got people like Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, who are an amazing tag team, but we all agree that Alba Fire would be an amazing singles competitor. I mean, we saw her as Kaylee Ray, and in my opinion, I think that she is one of the best wrestlers on the roster. You still got people floating around like Io Sky, Charlotte Flair is going to be on her way back, Becky Lynch will eventually be back, Rhea Ripley is going to be eventually back. And we also have current up-and-coming stars like Lyra Valkyria, Blair Davenport, and Tiffany Stratton. Don't forget Kiana James. And that's not even me naming the entire women's roster. But what's the one thing that we notice? There's only 2 titles for those women to compete for, right? You have one on Raw, you have one on SmackDown. But there's only limited TV time that we're getting for a lot of these superstars. Heck, Bayley was barely getting any TV time until like last week. Bayley would get a 17-second segment while somebody else is competing, saying that they're going to take her title, and then she's off TV. Liv Morgan, on the other hand, is a completely different story, but her biggest storyline doesn't even have anything to do with another woman that's active. Rhea Ripley might be gone for another 4 to 6 months, and she's in a storyline with the Judgment Day, which are all men right now. So that brings us to our main topic of discussion: having a women's mid-card title. So I'm going to discuss the positives, I'm going to discuss the negatives. I'm also going to talk about it of having one women's mid-card title and having 2 women's mid-card titles. Let's go over the positives on this one first. If we get a women's mid-card title, hopefully 2, that's going to give us more opportunity to have singles matches for the women's competitors. That also means we're going to have more storyline with the women's. We're going to have more matches with the women's division. We're also going to get more TV time for these women. I also believe this is going to give us more of an opportunity to bring up a lot of NXT stars that are stuck competing in an NXT brand, who have an opportunity to really glow up, like a Tiffany Stratton, who blew up almost immediately from coming onto the main roster by having something to compete for that isn't a title that a lot of the older women that are established are going to be competing for. I do also believe a massive positive is that it's going to give a lot of women that are older on the roster, a lot of people that have been carrying the division, an opportunity to take somewhat of a break. I feel like a lot of people have been hating on Becky Lynch recently because she's so much on TV, she's so involved in a lot of storylines, but it felt like she had to be. A lot of the storylines had to be including her just because of the prestige she had, and a lot of the people that she was competing with just didn't have and weren't as credible enough to compete in the certain storylines or matches that she was in. Now let's go on to the negatives, and I feel like there's a couple obvious negatives on this one. Number one is, if they end up going with one title, is what show is it going to be on? Is that person going to be competing on both shows? And is it just going to be like how we have the women's tag titles, where just 1 week it's here, 1 week it's there? There's no really continuing storylines, because if, for example, you have Io Sky on Raw as the mid-card title champion, start a storyline with someone on SmackDown, and she loses that title, does the new champion have to start a segment with someone else on a different show? I believe continuity will be very hard with one title. Now, if we have two titles, it does feel like we diminish the value of the main women's title a little more. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, that doesn't happen with the men's. The reason why it doesn't happen with the men's is the men are on TV 85% of the time. The biggest thing is are they going to start cutting out some of the men's matches so they can fit in the women's mid-card title, as well as also making space for the women's main titles? Because the one thing that we have been seeing is the women don't get enough singles matches. So we don't see these stars get built up, right? When it comes to people winning the Intercontinental title and the US title, the theory is that that person, by holding that title, is going to get credibility, and then they're going to shoot themselves up to the main event scene, like a Gunther right now, where Gunther is now going to be competing at SummerSlam for the World Heavyweight Championship. The idea was that Logan Paul, as the United States champion, had enough credibility to face Cody Rhodes for the WWE Championship at King of the Ring. The problem is, and we know it, is that women don't get enough TV time as is. If we're going to throw in a women's mid-card title as well as having the main title, the only time we're going to see women compete for the titles or compete in singles matches in general is for the titles. We're not going to be able to build real storylines unless we have women take up 4 or 5 segments on the show, and I think it's pretty evident they're not doing that. For lack of a better words, I don't think that a women's mid-card title is a bad idea. I just don't think it's possible with the current structure of the TV shows. I don't think it's possible on SmackDown 100%. Could they slot it in on Raw and figure out how to get as many of the women on Raw, or have the women be free agents competing for that title? I think that could be possible. It could be a good way for us to eliminate some of the filler matches or filler segments that we see, but it's going to be very hard for them to find TV time where they're building enough storylines where we care about the women's mid-card title as well as we care about the main women's title. And I think the opportunity just isn't there with the current structure of timing that they have on these shows. I do think there are opportunities where women go down to NXT and compete for the NXT title, or you have the NXT champion come up to the main roster and compete against the main roster talent for the NXT title, something along those lines to get more of the singles matches on TV. Now, I do think that WWE does need to add another title for the women's division, but I think it's actually adding another either tag team title or doing like a trios tag championship where we see more of these women competing, but we see them competing in groups. Because I don't know what it is, I've said it earlier, for some reason, Triple H doesn't like having as many singles matches for the women's. All we really see is tag team matches. We were seeing Kaden Carter and Katana Chance on TV so much. We were seeing Indy Hartwell with Candice LeRae. We were seeing Maxine Dupree with Ivy Nile. I think that there's a lot more opportunity for the tag team division for the women to have a little more spotlight, whether it's another title, whether they do a trios title, something along those lines. I just don't think another singles title makes sense at this current moment. Now, one of you guys right now might be writing up a whole theory statement in the comments, and I actually want to know from you guys, do you think that there is enough, 1, TV time, 2, enough people competing in the singles division of the women to even make it possible, or is it all just fantasy booking? Is it all just a fantasy for us to have a, women's intercontinental and women's United States champion, or whatever they decide to name it? As someone who's a big fan of the women's division, I really do hope they decide to give them a little more TV time, at least build some more cool storylines that aren't just centered around, the main titles. Obviously, that is everyone's goal always, is to win a main title. But I would love some more stories to be built that give us an opportunity to see a lot of these women as individuals rather than, you know, tag teams or stables that they're in right now, because that's all that it felt like we've had for the past couple years. So Triple H, if you're seeing this, we want more women's storylines and we want more women's singles matches. With that being said, I'm going to leave you guys with this one question. If there was a women's mid-card title, who do you think should be the inaugural champion? I'm going to give you my pick. I do think it should be Tiffany Stratton, because I think that once you have her win it, have her defend it for about 6 months, you send her straight to the moon and you have her become a world champion on the main roster, because she, in my opinion, is absolutely unbelievable. I saw her recently at a house show. The way she moves on TV is way better in person than it is on TV. She is a one of a kind, and I think that we have an absolutely stacked women's division. I am very excited for the future of the women's division. Can't wait to get Rhea Ripley back in the picture. With that being said, I love each and every single one of you guys. Like I said earlier in the video, if you guys enjoyed, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, turn on your notifications so you can see the future videos. I love each and every single one of you guys for making it this far, and peace out.